Perfect. I think that should be working okay. We're just gonna get get a few things set up, get the stream linked, and then we should be good to go. Perfect. I think that should be good to go. Give me just a few minutes here, and then I will introduce everything that we're doing today. We're going to be doing a replay that was played a couple of days ago, and it's going to have some fun new gameplay changes and things like that. Just give me a couple of minutes here. Yes, we are very dedicated to Medieval 2 over on Silmarillion Total War, Lucas. Alright, I think my audio levels are fine, but I'll be checking the chat throughout, so if they're not, please let me know. We'll go ahead and we'll turn up the master just a little bit there, and that just a little bit more, so you can enjoy some of the music that we have. And I'm going to introduce some of the factions and sort of the ideas behind it, and then we're going to get into the actual replay itself. So I hope you guys enjoy it. There's going to be a lot of very big, very controversial changes, as I'm sure there would be with any overhaul. Currently, we only have 4 factions that have had it applied to it. That would be the House of Feanor, the House of Ulfang, the House of Bor, and the Realm of Angband. So we're doing a progressive rollout. So we can evaluate the changes and evaluate how the factions play off of each other and play with each other. I guess we'll start pretty well from the beginning of it. The idea behind the overhaul is to, I guess, continue doing what we've been doing for a very long time, trying to make the differences between not just the factions, but also units within the factions, so your subtypes, your light infantry, your medium infantry, your heavy infantry. We've done that in a couple of ways, both with the stat overhaul that I'm going to talk about, and also with the distribution of some of the new weapons. So the big thing is that your heavy infantry, and this is especially true of the Noldor, going to be very expensive and very tanky. If you look at some of the statistics there, these should all be correct. So you're looking at 16 armor. 16 to 17 armor, I would say, is going to be pretty normal for a lot of your Noldor units. They are going to have a lower melee defense score, but quite a high shield, so things like armor piercing in melee or armor piercing javelins and things like that are going to be much more important against them, and much more effective if you save them for countering these kinds of things. That's probably one of the biggest changes, is the way that your heavy units are going to behave. They're going to be slower, they're going to be tankier, they're going to feel heavy, but they're also going to take some new terrain penalties. That's one of the things that we're leaning into really heavily, is terrain penalties and being rewarded for choosing an army wisely and using terrain and things like that to your advantage. So your heavy infantry, your heavy cavalry especially, they take even greater penalties in forests, and forests are probably the most common terrain type that we currently use, and I think that you'll find almost anywhere in Medieval 2. So I may expand that to include some other kind of lesser used ones, but for now we're focusing on the forest because that's what everybody uses. If you look here at some of the House of Feanor units, obviously they've gotten a lot smaller and they've gotten a good deal more expensive. Now we are using a 15k budget still. A lot of your upgrades are going to be a little bit more expensive, although that does kind of fluctuate from faction to faction. House of Feanor in particular gets 25% off, so instead of paying 90 for an armor upgrade, they're going to be paying, I believe it's like 60 or something like that, or whatever it happens to be. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. Let's find somebody. Yeah, there you go. It's 60. But they're still going to pay the same amount for their attack upgrade. So that only applies to their armor, as they're a smith, Noldor house specifically dedicated to a lot of smithing, things like that. So that's one of the little kind of flavor changes that you can expect. But also the House of Fane in particular, and Noldor units, racial differences are going to be important. Noldor houses are going to be smaller, like your Elven units are going to be a good deal smaller. And a lot more expensive as well, and that especially applies to the House of Fëanor. You're not going to see it expressed on every single unit here, but the Otorn have gotten about 10 smaller. Most of their cavalry units are going to be 10 smaller, and they're actually very, very expensive as well. You will notice it with some of the other units like the Archers of Himring, and some of their other units. I think the Footmen and the Swordsmen, all of those are quite similar to how they used to be in terms of size. But if you look at those statistics there, yeah, they've only got 2 melee skill. The reason I've done this is to keep AP, and the AP that is going to be mostly available through your medium and your lighter units. So to keep them relevant in the face of the very high defensive statistics of heavier infantry. I believe it's 9 and above shield value. They take a -1 melee defense penalty. They take -2 for being heavy infantry right off the bat. And the House of Fëanor in particular also takes some additional penalties to infantry because, of course, their cavalry is going to be very strong. And those cavalry units won't take that same penalty, not to the same extent. And they're very, very good. So you got 13 armor there, 12 shield, but 1,100 gold. So your Fëanor armies are going to be pretty small, which is both like a flavor thing and also a gameplay thing because of how powerful many of these units are going to be. House of Fëanor is also one of the least populous of the Noldor houses in Beleriand, so now you see that expressed a little bit more. But they do have some really hard-hitting units here, and we're going to see that in the replay today. And that's pretty well the long and short of it. I'll go over some of the other subtypes just so we can say that we've covered them, and then we'll go into detail in another video. A lot of your lighter infantry, they're going to have quite high melee defense, but they're going to be very limited in terms of their shield and, of course, obviously their armor. Most light infantry are not going to be able to go beyond 6 shield. There are some exceptions for that where it's, I would say, necessary, and you'll see that on a couple of the new Ulfang units that we're going to see today. But largely, they're going to depend on their melee skill. They also don't have as good of a morale shock response as your heavier and medium units will, so they are a little bit easier to scatter. So that's just to kind of keep light infantry, just not having them run around and just be better than heavy infantry in almost every regard except for their armor. So those are some of the big kind of pros and cons of your light infantry, especially those terrain bonuses, and Stalkers of Thargelion in particular are a very, very strong unit. When will the campaign be ready? I really couldn't tell you. There is progress being made. I'm going to have a little preview of some of our siege maps. The escalation sieges and sort of the multiple tiers of some of the major cities that you're going to see. But those are currently being made by WK. So I think the first one you're going to see will be Beardythel, and then probably Angband, and then Menegroth, I think will be slated, assuming that it's done around Christmas time. In any case, so that's your light infantry. Your medium infantry, you're going to have a little bit better shield value, obviously lower in the melee defense department. They don't take really any penalties in terrain, but they also don't have a lot of bonuses and things like that. So they're your bog standard, they're workhorse infantry for the most part. There will be some shifts in that as well. They do have access to some important weapon types that you're largely not going to find on your heavier infantry. And they've got good shield value as well. So that's your infantry for the most part. The only thing I want to talk about before we move in to the replay is that archers are going to be a little bit different. So because defense, shields, and things like that are going to be going up, naturally archer damage will be going up as well. So I've implemented kind of a scaling system. So depending on their tier, you can expect to see between 6 and 9, which obviously a lot of these units, like the lighter infantry, capped at 5 shield value. That makes your archers really, really good against them. And the same applies pretty broadly to cavalry and to basically every other kind of unit out there. So the lighter units will be a little bit easier prey for archers. and mid-range skirmishers like harassment javelins, etc., etc. I think that's pretty well everything that I really want to cover right now. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get one of our replays started. And it's probably going to tell us that we're incompatible, but that's very much not the case. So we're going to do this one right here. Yeah, that's fine. I don't think there's going to be any issues with it. Hello, XY. Welcome to the stream. And I'll point out some of the newer units and stuff as we go through them. So we're just going to slow it down just a little. And let's have a look here at the House of Wolfang, which is being played by myself. I actually get to play a game for once. So I'm obviously playing as the House of Wolfang. This is one of the newer units that has been added in. I think it's in this patch that's currently private to the testers, so I don't think you guys have access to them. But the Raiders of Dor Caranthir are going to be sort of a hybrid unit. They're a melee cavalry, and they've also got a nice charge value, and Lancers have gotten some improvements as well, in particular to their damage off the charge. So you will be able to, in some cases, pull off more frontal charges and be able to do a decent amount of damage there as well. They also use a new system that we've created to give mount specific. Well, we haven't really created it. The mechanics are always there, but it's new to the mod, where we give mount specific bonuses to things. So the Raiders of Dor Caranthir, the House of Wolfang, generally are traders who betray the Sons of Feanor, so in particular they can be very strong against the House of Feanor. I think they get like +2 against all of the mount types that specifically the House of Feanor use. So in addition to being melee cavalry and having a nasty charge, they do have those more faction-specific bonuses, and you're going to see that all over the place. You're going to see axe units getting bonuses against like Ents and the Grandfather from the Avari and things like that. It's important to note that this can only be confined to mounted units. So elephants, cavalry, things like that, can't really do it against infantry, at least not at the moment. I haven't quite figured out how to do that. But yeah, the Raiders of Dor Caranthir are very, very powerful with the charge, very good in melee, capable of kind of ripping open some of those heavier units from the Sons of Feanor who are going to be across the field, but they obviously don't have a lot of great armor, and they have no shield value, so they are easier prey for horse archers and things like that. We've also got some Berserker units here. Ulfsarks of Himring. If you guys have ever played Age of Mythology throughout your childhood, then the Ulfsark name is probably something that will be well known to you. This is one of the new Berserker units that are available in the mod now that we've switched over to the Engine Overhaul project. And they function a lot like Rome 1 Berserkers. You throw them into combat, you lose control of them, but they get greatly improved damage values and things like that. I sure am alive. I've been busy. I actually moved house. I have my own house now, myself and my partner, and yeah, it's been going pretty well. But I've just been busy with school and with a million other things. But yeah, so Berserker units, in some of the previous iterations we've had of the test patch, they've been absurdly strong. They're a little bit more reined in, but still very useful, especially when you are supporting them, which is what I'm going to be doing today with some Ravagers of Himring. So they do area effect damage, they do all kinds of things. A very good unit, but not a lot of armor and defense, as I'm sure you've probably guessed. Let's see, what do we have here in the back? A lot of Pillagers of Himring. I think I've got 2 units of them. They function quite similarly to how they do on live, except they get bonuses against cavalry and even greater bonuses against Sons of Feanor cavalry. And throwing axe damage has basically gone up by, I think, like 3 or 4 points of damage almost across the board using the new scaling system that I have. So throwing axes benefit from that the same as bowmen do, and they're going to be able to crack open some harder enemies with those shield values. Out front here we have the Easteron Marauders. Previously this was a throwing axe unit, now they're a new sling unit. The idea behind them is that they don't have the AP of slings, but they do have some higher base damage and slightly increased range over other slingers. I think it's like 35 or so at the moment. And it's a really nice answer to light and even shielded archers. So one of the important things to note about shielded archers, go ahead and slow it down to 0.1 there, is that in order to keep them from just being better over other archers, they actually take a range penalty now. I think it's -10 and half that for cavalry, because a lot of bow cavalry already take range penalties, but it does make a difference. Those 10 meters, it does make a difference. and they've only got shielded archers will only have, I think, around 10 to 15 meters on these guys, and they're actually allowed to have a higher shield value than what you'd expect for light units. So they're a very nice counter to that. They've got a lot of numbers. They're relatively cheap. Always good to see. I'm also going to be defending them with some of the Eastron tribesmen here. Evil men generally pretty easy to rout, so I definitely needed to defend the slingers here with a unit like this, and they've got some good bonuses versus Cav. Also got a couple of Eastron foragers here, which are harassment javelins. Javelins generally get an extra point of damage across the mod because of shield and armor going up so much. And they're going to be really important. The new kind of identity for Ulfang is that they're not as much of a steamroller. I mean, this is my only game that I've played with them, but there's a lot more controlled aggression in what I've experienced and how I've seen other people play. So you will very much still be that Berserker Horde faction, but you are going to want to do a little bit more skirmishing and take advantage of some of the more, I guess, interesting and micro and perhaps skill-capped elements of their armies. That'll just make Ulfang a little bit more fun to play, I think, overall. I've also got 3 units of the Ravagers here. As with all Falx units, they're quick, with a little bit of bonus versus cavalry, and especially against Sons of Feanor cavalry, and they have a really good charge value as well. And this particular unit is locked morale, so they're just kind of here to be the meat shields. I've also got, I think, 3 units of the Marauders. They're no longer locked morale, but they do have the higher damage from throwing axes, and all the other benefits of being a Falx unit that I just listed off. I've also got a unit here of Sons of Ulfang, who are a heavy unit, and so they have a lot of survivability. They've got the AP. They've got a disgusting charge value that's, because of the new system, it's a little bit overblown, but they've literally got 60 charge in its AP, and they've got like 30 base damage, so they're extremely useful, but they are about 1,600 or so gold, so that can be very, very expensive. So they're a little bit harder to fit into things. You can almost afford like half of a second Thane of Ulfang, which are now not a bodyguard unit, but a heavy infantry elite unit. And yeah, so it is a little bit of a sacrifice to have them in here, but given the people we're playing against, it will be, I think, pretty important. More cav over here. I've got my, I think, 3rd unit of the Raiders of Dor-Caranthir, and then 2 units of Pillagers of Himring out on my right. And then we move on to Angband. I'll try to go through it fairly quickly, and we can, go into more detail perhaps in another stream. But by and large, Angband Orcish infantry has always been very strong, and people love to bring tons of them in Castle, which was done kind of to the exclusion of some of the more interesting and like scary, robust elements of their army, like the Balrogs. So you can still do that, and you can even do that to a greater degree, but a lot of the Angband orcs are not going to be quite so effective as they used to be, and they're very reliant on heavy armor. They've got pretty decent shield value, but they've got complete garbage for melee defense, so AP obviously very strong against them. And they can bring a big old brick of orcs, but for the most part they're all pretty low on morale and don't have really good morale response. So they are quite easy to rout with shocks and with fear, with the exception of certain units like the medium infantry Reavers of Anfalglith, who have a whole bunch of terrain bonuses. They've got a bonus versus Ents and other things. And they've also got a discipline morale response. So you have a reason to take the Reavers now over some of the other units, like the Legionnaires or just some of the more elite infantry that Angband does have a very limited access to. They're also axe units, so axe units are generally much higher in damage, and they've got a lot more speed to them, so it's easier to deliver them into combat, get that damage done. But they lack quite a lot of melee defense, perhaps even more so than they did previously. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there. So I think they fit into the army a little bit better. They're nice for like guerrillas. You can throw them into forests and things like that, where the rest of the Angband heavy infantry would really struggle because they have like a -2 or something like that. And yeah, it's just they have a much better, more well-defined role, I think. So we got a bunch of them here. We got lots of halberdiers, as you would expect from an Angband army. We have tormentors. All of the detachments units in Angband now give a bonus to morale, so managing morale is going to be a little bit more challenging, I think, as Angband. You do still have a decent amount of units, but not all of them fit into every composition, and you can't really spam all of them. So routing is going to be something you need to be prepared for. But you do have some answers to them, like some of the heavy infantry who are a bit more stable, the Reavers, things like that, and Bulldogs to help keep your units in line. They're quite good at what they do. A little bit less damage on the Bulldogs, but of course they have got some new little tricks. Greatly increased armor is one of the big ones. They've got really high melee defense because they're using a new weapon profile that I've conceived of. That's high on the melee defense and lower on the damage. Wolf Riders of Angband as well here. One of the few units in the Angband army that have a discipline morale response. They are -2 to their morale, so I think they clock in at 12. So it is still possible to route them. They are a little bit larger, and being heavy, you can expect their armor and their shield values to go up a fair amount. And I think there's only one of them on the fields here. Now I think we need to switch the mesh on this because obviously the UVs are really screwed up on the poor Uruluki there that we borrowed from Botet. But you can actually bring 2 of them now. They're a little bit less murderous in close quarters. They don't have the same survivability of Balrogs. I think Balrogs have like twice the armor. But you can bring 2 of them. Their missile damage has gone up ever so slightly, mostly in response to everything else also going up that would thwart that damage. But you can bring 2 of them, so that's always really nice. They're really good support units. I think they have a little bit extra ammo as well, so they're very good within their role. You can throw them in infantry lines, and they'll do okay for a little while, but they fall away much, much more quickly, and they are a bit more expensive. Balrogs, as I mentioned, their armor went up, and they're actually less expensive now. I think they went down from I think they're currently 1,500, but they went down from 1,800 or something, so they've come down quite a lot. They've got a very significant morale buff, which is going to be extremely useful for keeping a lot of these orcs and stuff in line. There you have it. Let's move over here and take a look at the Sons of Feanor. They're being played by Panthan of Barsoom. He's got some Riders of the Pass here. Riders of the Pass, very good. They've also got, because they're Noldor and they're heavy cavalry, they have pretty good secondary weapon damage. They do still take penalties in the forest and against other cavalrymen of basically all descriptions, wargs, elephants, you name it. But they are a little bit tankier and a little bit more dangerous generally, especially if they get that charge off into the rear of something. I think they have 14 base damage at the moment, but only 1 charge. But that can still hit pretty damn hard if you're not prepared for it. I've also got some reskins here. A lot of these units have been reskinned by Steward of Dale. Got some Hunters of Caligorm. Fear Causing. I just played a game with these guys, and I basically got carried by Hunters and my teammate and some circumstances. So they are extremely strong. And it's important to note that the Angband Halberds specifically have actually lost a trait that allows them to reflect charge damage from the front. So Hunters of Caligorm can kind of dive on them in the event that the Angband is kind of turtling and castling up. So that's really, really important. Of course, if they stick around and fight it out in melee, they will die extremely fast, even to non-AP infantry. But they are a lot more survivable, a lot more usable, and you can bring 3 of them, I believe. But yeah, let's move on from them. Fronts here, we've got Shield Bearers of Hellevorn, we've got Defenders. They're all largely the same in how you use them, but obviously there's some new reskins and stuff here, so I can take a moment and let you enjoy that. This is the fully upgraded version of the Footmen of Himring. Not quite so many of them. I know he's got some Stalkers. They might just be hidden. So we'll probably see them pop up a little bit later. Over here you can get a better look at the new reskin for the Defenders of Aglon. Again, more Footmen of Himring sitting there in the back, and the second unit of the Shield Bearers. And then we've got some Accursed of Alkawande, that being the Legendary Company, and I believe that's where the General's at today. Their model is unchanged. They just look kind of ridiculously cool. And they have extremely high armor, lower melee defense, so chargers can really do a lot to them, especially cavalry. But they've got extremely high armor. Once you upgrade them, I think they're rocking 18 armor, and they're relentless, and just a very, very scary unit overall. A little bit of movement out on the side here. Let's take a look. We got some Roqueni Magloro. That's their new model there. They're absolute beasts at the moment. I'm not sure they're too strong. They might be kind of on the cusp of being too strong. Sorry, I'm having trouble. Oh, sorry about that. It's my Alexa. Let me turn that off for you. But yeah, I'm not too sure. At the moment, they are capped at 2, so you can bring 2 of them. That's probably going to change. But they're extremely expensive, fully upgraded. I think they're 1455 florins, so very, very expensive. But definitely worth it. There's a huge payoff to bringing a unit like this, but bad things can happen to them against certain factions and certain unit types. Mounted Company over here as well. Looks like they have their 1 upgrade, 2 units Mounted Company. Yeah, so 2 units of Mounted Company, some Horse Archers, Lancers, Roqueni, and then a pretty small infantry force. We're just going to pause it here so we don't lose any of the action. To answer your question, I don't know when the release date of the new campaign is. I do have some previews for some campaign settlements that are currently being worked on, planned for the near future, but that's going to depend on when they actually get finished. Will we get to see any special characters from the books of the... Absolutely, yes. There's going to be... actually, there's a lot of them already in the game. We have models for them. We've got strat models, etc., etc. So yes, you absolutely will. Moving on here, we have Lord Belagos playing as the new and improved House of Boar. Long story short, a lot of the Boar kind of building block frontline units have gotten more men in the unit. They've gotten the improved stat line that all the heavy infantry are getting, but they have lost a little bit of damage, and they do use some less damaging weapon types overall. So these units are like important kind of building blocks, and then you've got the Axemen, who are very much the opposite. They've got less defense, way more damage, but limited charge, and less men in the unit. Wondersmith Argelion, these are like a lighter shielded bowman, so they will be taking that range penalty. You got a couple of them out in front here. He's also got some Warband of Lothlan, who are in a shield wall formation, so some light spearmen. They do have a place, certainly, in this army, especially out in the woods, where they could be kind of like guerrillas and just fight in places that the heavy infantry can't, really. Got some more skirmishers here. These are going to be harassment javelins, so 3 damage long range, but, you know, not a ton of damage overall. We've got 3 Salamandrian Guard here, all of whom are going to have weapon upgrades. There are the Axemen of Boar. Looks like they don't have any upgrades. I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them here. Silverwind, this is the Legendary Company. They're sort of a mounted hunter, javelin, lancer hybrid, and so they're very good at hunting down large beasts and things like that. I don't really have any in my army, but Angband certainly does, so if they can get on top of the Balrogs, that can be a big problem. They've also got a nice little lance with an AP charge and things like that after the fact, so always good to see. But let's go ahead here and let's crank up the speed a little bit. We're going to pop over and see exactly what's happening. So it looks like Tundra opting for a nice big ol' rush. Got some wretches here. They're going to be out front. Now, wretches are not really going to inflict a lot of damage onto these heavier cavalry units unless they can kind of surround them. Yeah, maybe some of these stragglers here will get picked. Like this guy seems like he's in a very bad way. I'd expect him to die, but they're more of a meat shield. Especially when supported, they can be extremely useful. In another game, maybe I'll show you on another stream, the wretches were like extremely important for holding things down and giving my front line time to sort of do what it is they do best. But don't expect a ton of damage from them, even when you have heavy cavalry that charges into the front. They're very low tier, light spearmen. They're more of a speed bump than anything else to some of these important units. We've got another charge here coming around. Looks like Tundra, or not, sorry, not Tundra. Pantheon of Barsoom is going to maybe try and overload this flank, bust through, send a lot of these units fleeing. Halberdiers here, kind of ignoring it and just getting out of the way. Got some Urloki and some Wolf Riders. I probably wouldn't send the Urloki at these guys, to be perfectly honest. With that 16 armor, melee cavalry like this, they've got, if they're upgraded, they've got around 14, 15 damage, plus bonuses against elephants. The Urloki are actually not going to do as well as you might think here. There's a little bit of support, that's nice, but with all the Feanor cavalry kind of converging here, and the AP on these guys, that's just, it's not going to go well. I think he might even have both of his Urloki units in here. But yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be enough with the AP. This is going to turn their defense into basically nothing, and you can expect to see these dragons begin to fall relatively quickly, although I see that, and they are actually dealing a decent amount of damage here to the Roqueni Maglora. How much of that is friendly fire from the javelins going into the rear of them? It's entirely impossible to say, but they are taking some pretty serious damage here. Wolf Riders have somehow lost 20 models. Urloki have definitely lost at least one of their number. You can expect the Roqueni Maglora to probably take a few more down. This maybe isn't the best idea for Panthan here. Looks like he's trying to pull them out. The Reavers here getting attacked in the rear by those Lancers. They're not doing too bad. And then that front line clash here looking really, really brutal. Now, Angband's certainly got the numbers, to overwhelm this position, although it looks like the Halberdiers are taking their sweet time in getting in here, so hopefully we don't have any replay corruption. I don't know. I don't think that would be the case, because I haven't changed anything or done anything different with the patch, but we'll see. Balrog's hanging out in here. These two-headed units no longer have bonuses against elephants. It's important to note that. And so they're not going to do the same kind of damage to the 35 armor that the Balrogs have. And they're really an equalizer here. So they're definitely winning. And they probably don't want to have them in the forest, but those Balrogs are definitely making their presence felt. Let's see what we got in the back here. Tormentors doing their thing. A big Angband rush. And it's not doing amazing. There are some units here like the Tormentors that are just kind of hanging out. I think a lot of the Halberds are actually being left back to maybe defend themselves from some of the marauding Feanor cavalry. Take a little look over here, and it looks like maybe the Urloki got almost entirely wiped out. I don't know if they took the Roqueni with them, but they might have. Yeah, it looks like maybe Tundralos left them in there a little bit too long, Rise of the Past supporting from the back, and we're starting to see some Rangers of Helleborn and things like that come out of the tree line. The trees start speaking Edine, and off they charge into those Reavers, while also getting flanked by those wretches. So Feanor trying to hold it down here. They're not doing too bad, but it is a little bit in the balance. Meanwhile, over here, some ugly things have happened with some cavalry. I'm mostly getting bullied by the Salamandrine Guard. I think, managed to catch them in... I managed to catch them in a nice little engagement over there, but it just didn't do the amount of damage that I needed it to. So my Raiders of Dork around through here, looking a little bit worse for wear. They can do well against the Salamandrines, but the Salamandrines are very, very strong as well. I brought up some Foragers here to hopefully try and even things out, but the Salamandrines are going to just get on top of them, and they're going to instantly rout. And I threw some Cav in there to hopefully chase them off a little bit. And actually, I think they rout both of these units here. Now, they will come back. I will regain control of these guys eventually, but yeah, for the time being, really is unfortunate. Actually, I don't think the cavalry comes back. Out front here, I've just been hammering away at the boar line, so let's go ahead and slow down just a little bit here. I've been hammering away at them with skirmishers. You can really see those slingers making a difference. Even against these shielded units, there's a lot of dead Wanderers of Thargelion on the ground. They've been heavily reduced. For the most part, I'm just ignoring the ballista. There's not really many things that the ballista in my army is going to be particularly good against. Maybe my Sons of Wolfang or whatever, but I don't think they're going to do a whole lot to them in loose formation. So we've got a big block of Halberdiers over here. I'm definitely afraid of this. I want to wear this down, and then because I noticed that they were unshielded, I'm going to focus some of my attention on them and try and even that out as best as I'm able. Unfortunately, Sons of Feanor have something to say about that. Some of the Himring cavalry is going to come over here, and I'm actually not going to notice it for a little while. I'm going to charge right into my poor boys. Very sad. I do have some Eastern Tribesmen nearby who could be used to run these guys off, but it's going to be a tough fight. I think I shifted some of my cavalry over here to maybe try and provoke a more decisive engagement with the Boar cavalry. I have managed to do a little bit of damage to them, but now I'm going to have to draw all that cavalry back to try and deal with the Sons of Feanor. I brought forward some more Foragers. They can be really useful at kind of chipping away at the Salamandrine Guard while my other units maybe bully them out of position or try to get some nice rear charges. And they also make a nice meat shield or a piece of bait to kind of leave out for them. Brought a second unit of my Pillagers over, so I have some reinforcements over here. So it's kind of even, but very much not in terms of quality. Otherwise, everyone's just kind of hanging out so far. Yeah, there's the Foragers that were routing before, so I will get them back. And what are we doing about that cavalry? Yeah, I brought up some Raiders of Dork around here and managed to get some of my Eastern Tribesmen in there and reform my Slingers a little bit so I can keep doing a little bit of damage to them. But I wanted to get them out of there because I don't want those Silver Winds to come anywhere near them, because their Javelins are very, very strong. And they've also got an extra armor upgrade, which they're not supposed to have. So they're exceptionally tanky. And I will fire a couple shots at them. Claim the lives of maybe 1, 2 horsemen if I'm lucky, but yeah, not going well. Over here on the front lines, how are the Sons of Feanor doing? It's pretty ugly. Angband is able to, yeah, they brought up some of the Urulokis. One Uruluki survived that encounter with a Roqueni, who dragged down all of the other Uruloki plus the Wargs. But they do have one left, and they're going to rain down fire and death upon these guys. But Angband not having the greatest time here. Do have some numbers still left over. Over here, the Sons of Feanor are being overwhelmed, especially now that the Tormentors are here. That's that AP. It's really going to do a lot against these Footmen and some of these heavier units. But this wing looks like it's been completely lost. Some Riders of the Pass. They probably have enough armor to deal with these guys, but they are in the forest, so they're not going to do as well as they might otherwise. I don't know what Angband really has left for reserves. They do have some Arbalists, so this is, I think those Arbalists are probably shooting over here, if I had to guess. Down goes the Feanor General. Very unfortunate for the House of Feanor at this critical moment. Let's see what they're trying to shoot at. Yeah, it looks like that's all coming over into here, I would think. Trying to flank these guys and just deal as much damage as they possibly can before the Angband numbers run out. And this is kind of where I screw up a little bit. So Boar, things are indecisive enough that they're actually able to send a couple of their Axemen over here to help their allies. So these Iron Shod Halberdiers were brought up. There's some Balrogs over here, and so this fight can turn around, but probably not with the addition of, nearly 300 Axemen. So that's not great. Meanwhile, over here on me front lines, I took a little bit of damage maybe from the Mounted Company of Hammering, probably killing off a few of my Raiders of Dor-Caranthir, and it's just an endless skirmish. Over on this side, I think the Salamandrine Guard have retreated somewhere. Yeah, so they've retreated over here into this tree line. From the numbers, it looks like I managed to get my claws into another unit of them. Maybe with some throwing axes and some other stuff like that. But it's very much a stalemate over here, and I probably should be doing something a little bit more decisive. And I think at some point in the fairly near future here, I do realize that my ally is in a lot of trouble. So bringing up those Eastron Foragers now who had previously routed, and we're going to start bringing it, if we can, to some of the Boar units, I think, in the tree line while we get ready for a little bit more of a general charge. Salamandrine Guard coming out to maybe poke at me a little bit more. Got those Eastron Foragers there, and of course I have that cavalry, so I'm trying to use that mixed unit tactics to bring down these really impressive horsemen. Now, Wolfang can bring a lot of cavalry, a lot more than Boar can, but he's actually spent more in his cavalry in this game than I have, so I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage, and I've taken some pretty hefty beatings, and you can see one of my cavalry units still routing away in the distance. Yep. So there they come out. They're going to act as bait. They've actually got defensive formation on. And they're going to get that volley off. I'm going to support them there with some Raiders. And hopefully manage to deal a bit of damage there to those Salamandrians. Yeah, they are. And there's a second unit there, so we've got a bit of a layered defense. And I've got some more troops coming up to rain down missiles. Maybe go for a nice flank if we can. And these guys, because they are in defensive position, they are going to reload. And we're going to be able to do some pretty decent damage there. So that bait worked out real nice. If I tried to take them in a straight-up fight with the limited means that I have, I probably wouldn't have done nearly as well. We did lose a few Raiders there, and they will get a few pot shots as they run away. But for the most part, I'm going to call that a pretty nice trade and a decent success. Over here, not really too much going on. Let's take a look and see how things are going. Angband, it's predictably going not great for them. You can see that the Feanor has managed to break through the lines here. They have taken fairly heavy casualties, but Angband they're not doing too well. And now some of that cavalry has made its way into their back lines. So I don't think they've lost their general yet, so they won't lose that spirit to fight. But these poor Tormentors here being tormented by the Feanor cap, and actually Belegost has brought some of his cap over here to help out his ally, which is what I should have been doing. So Belegost and Panthan here playing really nicely together as a team. And if you look at the percentages, it's a little bleak, but bear in mind that the Sons of Feanor are quite small. So that shifts really quickly as a lot of these Elven units begin to die off. Around this time, I think I finally get my rear in gear. Yeah, and then I take my Raiders of Dor-Caranthir. Realize that those Axemen are kind of out in the open and not supported, and that my allies have a very bad time. I'm still pretty confident that I can beat what Lord of Belegost has left here, because I've got Berserkers, I've got Sons of Ulfang, I've got enough bodies to kind of drown these guys in a sea of chaff and then be able to flank them with some of my more damaging and armor-piercing units. But I can't beat a big Feanor army as well at the same time. So I do realize that I need to send something to help my ally. So too little, too late. They are going to get a nice charge here. You can watch that unit. It could basically just like melt. Yeah, it takes an incredible amount of damage from that charge. I need to get them out of there though, because they don't have the defenses to kind of sit there and hang out and slug it out with the axemen without taking hideous casualties. But they were basically full before, so that was nearly 100 damage. I noticed the Silver Wind are over here, and I have no way of getting away from them without taking at least some casualties. So they're a bit strung out, so I tried to get in there, maybe surround them, use that nasty anti-cav bonus. It's hard to tell who's really winning. Said that I was winning, but I knew that there was some support nearby. And I also really wanted to get a piece of these axemen. So another big charge here into the flank of those axemen. That's going to melt them pretty nice. And then, of course, because they're going to try and surround me with all the infantry and the cavalry, I hightail it out of there. But I do take quite a lot of losses at the same time. So was it worth it? I don't know. I did kill an okay amount of those silver wind. If I'd have sat around and fought it out, maybe I could have done better. Maybe I might go hunting for another one here. Oh yeah, we go for one final cheeky charge that basically destroys what's left of that axe unit and takes down a few more silver wind. But was it worth it? Honestly, probably. But not for the reasons that I previously stated. I didn't really manage to get any of the Noldor or any of the Feanor units. I just killed some Boar units, which I was trying to do anyway, and then hightailed it out of there as quickly as I possibly could, because I knew I was going to need that cavalry for the fight to come. Now we're starting to see some more movement on the infantry side of things. Got those Eastron foragers here. They were trying to pick on the axemen who were hanging out in the tree line. I think I got some of them. But I noticed that Axeman unit kind of strung itself out a little bit. So you're going to see the Ravagers go in, and then the Ulfsarks are going to be pretty close behind. And 1v1, the Axemen actually can beat the Ulfsarks, and it's a really ugly trade for me. But I've got a lot of support here, a lot of additional infantry and things like that, and I've got Ravagers as well to body block for them. So we're going to take some more pot shots, try and drive them back. But because my infantry are a lot lighter, and they have the Falx as well for the extra movement, he's just not able to get away from me. He's not able to get out of there, reform in time. So you're going to see that that movement speed and how it can matter in the games that you're playing. So we do get a nice piece of them. The Ulfsarks are in there too, and these guys are going to have a very, very bad time. And now he's going to have to bring something forward to try and support them, I think, at some point. And if he doesn't, I'm going to start picking on him with more of the skirmishers, which is what I'm in the process of doing right now. So those Eastron foragers moving forward, they definitely want to take a piece out of those axemen if they can with those armor piercing on the jabs. Yeah, some support coming in there from his own harassment javelins, but the axemen of Lothland still not very long for this world. And that's going to give me time to just set myself up here and hit these guys. I don't think it'll do too much, but it is armor piercing, so it does occasionally get somebody. Yeah, 3 guys off the volley. It does make them reform, and some of them move and shift their shields away, so that one will probably hurt a little bit more. Fortunately, I wasn't able to get both units firing at the same time. They're going to move over here to try and help these beleaguered axemen who are just getting absolutely slammed by my Falksmen. It's going to be nice. They'll kind of turn their flank and their back to my Javies. And this is a nice little trade for me. Sucking in a bunch of heavy infantry that would otherwise be scary. It gives my Cav time to do what they do best. That's the Cav I think I pulled out from the fight earlier, so they're going to get even more kills. Killing, I think, like 50 men off the charge. It's a big impact for just one charge, but I do lose a decent number of them, I think, in return. And he brings over a little bit of support to try and keep me out. I brought up the rest of my army, though. I got the Marauders here. Again, I need to use some of my skirmish to try and take down the Halberdiers, so that's what I'm going to try and do. And the Sons of Feanor have dealt with Angband, and now they're on their way over, along with the remnants of those axe units that I was unable to finish off, and I think the Silver Wind are probably over here somewhere. Ranges the Hellborns, probably Bulldogs. Yeah, it's definitely the Bulldogs. In almost every game I've played with Angbands, they're the last one to die. So not looking good, but we have managed to even out the odds a little bit here. So instead of being like 15% behind, we're now just 4%. So that's not so bad. These guys unfortunately get caught, but we will do some pretty serious damage to these halberdiers. They're down from like 150 men down to 91. These guys are full health though, so that's not great. So I figured now is the time. They're still trying to get into formation. And these halberds, only the Angband ones will reflect charge, so I didn't want them to get braced, but I think they managed to do that anyway. And it's just kind of ugly. Reinforcements pour out of the woods here to try and stabilize. I'm trying to get a piece of those Silver Wind over here with my cav as well. A little bit of support from the Ulfsark, so I think are... Say they're not berserking, but I feel like they probably are. Have we managed to actually kill any of them? Not really. Not too many. The Ulfsarks of Himring are still in there. I think they'll go berserk again at some point throughout the battle. The Ballista crew heading over to try and help out as well. How are we going to do? The Silver Wind, they're pretty tough. Like I said, they do have an extra armor upgrade that they currently shouldn't have. So I think this is a fight that we're ultimately gonna lose. But if I could at least kill most of them, that would be really awesome. Over here, Marauders and Foragers being brought up to try and support. I think ultimately we won against the Axemen there, but yeah, we're not doing so well on the front line. I wasn't able to kind of leverage a bunch of other things. And unfortunately, because of the Feanor reinforcements, I had to throw my Sons of Ulfang at them to try and stop them from getting in behind. So what I wanted to be doing, while I still had the light infantry on the front, is be getting the Sons of Ulfang around back so I could wrap around the line and just shred these low melee defense, high armor boar units, but unfortunately it didn't pan out that way. So throwing whatever reinforcements I can in here, trying to get some things to like body block. Some more Feanor units coming in over here. I figure I could kill them like off the charge, which basically we do. Tie down some of the other ones with chaff so that they'll leave me alone and let me do my thing with my Sons of Ulfang. But it's looking pretty bleak. So if we look on the front here, halberdiers are in their element, beating up my poor light infantry. I've basically been cleaned out in my center. I do have some other units here to try and support. I've still got some missiles and things like that left, but a lot of my guys are getting to rout because that's what's going to happen a little bit more with your evil factions. These guys are going to get caught in between a rock and a hard place. There's some halberdiers here. They are out of formation, so they might be able to drag them down. Nice support up on the hill there. And there goes, I think that's the Boar General, which is good news for me. But the Silver Wind come back. I think they got mauled earlier by some of my throwing axes, and they're going to get right behind me. And these are all skirmisher units and light infantry, so they've got like normal to like low morale response, and boom, off they go. A huge number of my Eastron tribesmen, especially because they're my anti-cavalry deterrent. That was really painful. And I'm just getting pounded by those skirmishers up on the hill. They're doing really well. Managing to stop my charge. So the boar line, pretty healthy in a lot of places. I did manage to do a decent amount of damage. Yeah, a nasty charge there is probably going to send my Marauders of Himring running off. I kind of managing to wrap around a little bit. There was lots of like pathfinding because there's tons of like routing units like Sons of Feanor and stuff like that here. So it's hard to get a good charge off with my Sons of Ulfang. I'm gonna pull them back here. Try again if I possibly can. That's a fun thing to talk about, is that I am looking at ways that we can make infantry cycle charging a little bit more common, so that your shock infantry, if you're willing to micro them and spend the extra time, then you get you'd get the benefits of it. You can get a nice bonus from that, and it can potentially change games. So Sons of Ulfang do manage to get in there, but what can they do really? So Feanor pretty well off the board, I think. I don't think there's anything left except for maybe a couple Rangers of Hellevorn. And I can see that things are going very badly, so I really want to get into the back of this blob here, but I've got my own men in the way. We've got those damn Sons of Feanor still in the way, and it's just not going to happen. So by the time that I actually managed to get my Sons of Ulfang into the position I wanted them to be in, he was already closing in on me with a lot of light infantry, and it just wasn't going to happen. So we're going to try that cheeky charge. It's not going to be great because it's Medieval 2 and pathfinding is what it is. But we do manage another cheeky charge here. into some of these oncoming units. So Sons of Wolfang gonna get a pretty solid number of kills here, I think, from a lot of these light infantry. They've got the damage to do it, but he just managed to keep the elements of my army separated from kind of where they needed to be. And a lot of these halberdiers are just going to have a field day. I think they end up with like hundreds upon hundreds of kills because I just threw a lot of light infantry at them from the front, which is, you know, what happens. But it's been very brutal. 84 to 96. Yeah, we fell behind, but we managed to also bring it back a little bit. And it's an absolute mess here. So it was a hell of a game for sure. But I think there's a lot of the new mechanics, I guess, philosophies, or whatever you want to call it. A lot of it's on display here. Like my light infantry managing to catch out some of those heavy infantry and, you know, hit them really hard with some important units. The way that like evil factions respond to morale shocks and things like that, and some of the new tricks you'll need to pull out to try and win your games. Ultimately, I did end up destroying all of those Salamandrine Guard, so he had the quality advantage, but I was able to leverage some numbers and some good tactics and make that work. And the skirmishing was obviously in my favor pretty well the entirety of the game. So if I was able to sit here and pick them apart and do all of that in relative safety and not have to worry about my ally or anything like that, maybe it could have worked out. But as it is, Lord of Elagos has managed to fend off my Ulfang army. Go ahead here. Fast forward a little bit. And the good guys are going to take the victory. Now, there was going to be other factions that we throw into the mix, so this is just a kind of a cross-section, I guess, of kind of what we're going for. So you've got 4 factions, and they in some ways complement and foil each other, which is why I thought it would be interesting to do them. And in this case, we didn't win. But there are some other replays and stuff out there that I'll show on the channel in the near future. That you know, it's a good back and forth. So ultimately, we lost there, 1,835 men. Tundras didn't do too bad at all. He got less kills, but like the army, like look at the difference there, right? And that's even with some of their units being saved. Essentially, he killed everything in Feanor's army aside from a handful that I had to wipe out with my Sons of Wolfang. Let's look at what did the damage. 191 on the Sons. A lot of that was units that I didn't want them to be fighting. Sons of Feanor, light infantry, things like that. The Ulfsarks did well. 115 kills. Whether or not they paid for themselves, they're 1,100 gold. I don't know. Maybe close to it. Ravagers did okay. Obviously, I think one of these two would have been, you know, fighting out on the flanks. Probably not the ones that got thrown into the front of the halberds. The Marauders, the skirmish units did really well, and that's just like a 570 cost unit, and they got a lot of kills. The Raiders, that was that one Raider that ran around just like slaughtering everybody. These are mostly cavalry kills on Salamandrine Guard, so it's, you know, tis what it is. It's a little bit lower, but obviously there's a quality difference. Pillagers, the Pillagers didn't do very well. They were just meat shields, but again, that's mostly cavalry kills as well. So they kind of did their job. The Foragers, I think that's the harassment javelins. Yep. And then Marauders. I get these units confused. I'm not entirely sure which one the Marauders are. I think those are the throwing axe units, though. They did okay-ish. And even the Tribesmen. The Tribesmen got like 20 kills on Sons of Feanor cavalry, so they probably didn't pay for themselves, but it was pretty damn close. Alrighty. I'll take a quick look at the chat here and see if there's anything that I've missed. Since the project has been in the works for many years, if we get Medieval 2 remastered, will you guys be able to port your mod to the new version if possible? I don't think we'll be doing that. I don't think anybody in the team, we've been working on the project for like, I think Belagas said 4 years, so I think it's really like 3 and a bit. We've been working on the project for years, and I don't think anybody really wants to start again from step 1, so I don't think that would happen. Let's see what else I missed here. There are a lot of drama scripts with other elves. You'll see some for the Sons of Feanor. It's going to be one of their like central central mechanics challenges for playing the Sons of Feanor, and you'll see that reflected when you're not playing them as the AI as well. From what we have planned anyway, obviously things are subject to change over time. But yes, definitely that's something you can expect to see. Will we be able to attack other elves like in the Kinsling? Yes. I think one of the big strengths of Total War campaigns is that it is a sandbox. You can do whatever you want and play it however you wish. There will be some scripts and things like that that will maybe disincentivize that, but stop you from doing it entirely if you're determined? No, absolutely not. Yeah, you should be able to play through the campaign however you like. We may include a script similar to the old Third Age where you can like choose to do a good versus evil, where all of the good factions are basically like shackled together. But that might skew the balance a little bit, and it might not be as like fun and challenging otherwise. And it certainly doesn't reflect the politics in Valerian. So you'll have lots of options on how you want to play it. So yes is the answer. We have a flow of constant elves from the Undying Lands arriving in Valerian or elves leaving. No, because that wasn't really a thing that anyone was doing at the time. The Undying Lands weren't open to the Noldor. Anybody who tried, most of the people just drowned. And there wasn't exactly, fleets sailing out of Valinor because there was a ban. So no, you won't see that at all. I don't see why you would. Since first age in the dawn of the elves and so many elven cultures and languages, can we have elven princesses? I think someone was talking about that. Yeah, you might actually see princesses as a mechanic. I don't really understand them because I've never really played a lot of vanilla medieval, so I don't know a lot of those mechanics. But if we can find a way to make it interesting, and there's like choices and challenges and like new kind of gameplay roads that open up, then absolutely, yeah, you'll see that. Boost relations for Noldor to marry Sindar. That's a little bit more specific. Like I said, I think so. And if we can find a way to implement it and make it cool, then yes. But yeah, I can't really answer the second half of that. Would there be units or a faction of the Wood Elves? Like, yeah, man. You may have gotten into the mod a little bit later, but we've had Assyrian, I think, for years at this point. They were part of the initial release, I believe. And so yeah, they've been a thing. They're obviously going to having the overhaul applied to them, so they'll be changing from their current iteration. But yes, we have Wood Elves. Like we've got the Lyquendi. We've got some campaign units that sort of reflect their relationship with Sons of Feanor. We've got Avari. We've actually got a small sub-faction within Doriath for Aeol's Dark Elves, so I think you get like 3 or maybe 4 units for Aeol. If you control that territory, you can recruit them as mercenaries. Already done. Steward of Dale did them. And then, of course, you have the Sindar, and the Sindar are all over Beleriand, so you've got several expressions of Sindar. And then the new overhaul patch, you're going to see gameplay differences between your Noldor and your Sindar and your your Lyquendi. I think I have them all just labeled as Nandor, but specifically Lyquendi and things like that. So you can expect to see very big racial differences that kind of reflect how they are in the story, but also play into what they do as a faction and what makes them interesting and challenging to play, things like that. So yes. How big is the map? The map's enormous. The map, I think, uses 199 tiles currently. And with EOP, so there's 199 potential settlements, cities and things like that. And then with EOP, you actually have the ability to turn forts into like settlements. So your forts can have things built within them and things like that. So how much we're going to use that? Obviously, I don't. You don't want to like move every 2 feet and then find a new city that you have to siege because that's tedious. But the map is very large, and you'll likely see more than the 199 settlements that are available through most campaigns. EOP is a really big game changer. It's one of the reasons we continue to use it, even though we've had like some technical issues that we're still working out. But yeah, so it's big. It's very, very big. It will have tons of stuff for you to do in it. We're going to go through the terrain with like a fine-tooth comb, and there's some new systems that we've kind of developed for the campaign that are going to be, at least I think, hopefully challenging for you, and maybe address some of those traditional Total War woes where like you get into the middle of the campaign and it's just a spam fest. I do have a new system. I've talked about it on stream before, and I won't go into it now, but I do have a new system that will hopefully limit the amount of kind of stack spamming that you end up having. So your armies are important and your individual units are important, and hopefully I don't know, maybe if you guys are like me, you like to get attached to your units, you make up little stories for them in your head, whatever, you'll be able to do that a lot more than just having, generic Noldor stack number 355 when you're only running around with, 5-6 armies at your disposal and things like that. So that's also having less armies to throw around is a challenge in and of itself. You likely will see the AI have those like sort of traditional cheats, but not to the same extent, because obviously we'll need to evaluate how they interact with the new system and if they need the help or not. So having limited armies against a foe who will have a little bit more, but it won't be blatant cheating, because I hate that shit, to be perfectly honest. But the AI does need help because it's just stupid. It's really dumb. So yeah. Expect to have less armies on the field and to have them be more important and to get more attached to them. We will get to see any special characters. Yes, you will. I think I answered that already. We've already got them in the game. You'll see them as generals. You'll see them reflected in like special units and things like that. I mentioned Aol, so Aol will have his own custom model, and it'll be within the bodyguard unit that we've created for him. And you'll have in addition to legendary companies, obviously you have that available to you for multiplayer, like the LCs, like the Accursed, Silverwind, whatever. You'll also have legendary regiments that you can get through scripting. I think the one that's currently done is Prince Gwyndor, so you'll get some special Gwyndor units that you won't be able to really replenish, but you'll get them through a script. Stuff like that. So you'll see the characters, you'll see other things, you'll see units dedicated to them, etc., etc. I think that's everything. Will the campaign option have the option to host campaign to play with our friends, or to play all the factions by ourselves? I think EOP has some new things that make multiplayer campaigns in Medieval 2 possible, but I don't really know anything about that, so I won't talk about it today. But I know that there is something that you can do, either like in the traditional sense where you play together and pass turns back and forth, or if it's more of it's easier to play like hot seat campaigns and to play them like live and reactively, or to play hot seat games as like multiplayer and stuff like that instead of just auto resolving. But I don't know much about that because it's not really my job. My job is other things. So I think that's everything. The Brood of Glaurung faction. It's funny you ask about that, Mario, because just 2 messages above you is the fellow who's actually working on them. He's been working on the orcs for them currently. They are still something that we're planning on doing. I have to do at some point the Glaurung model, but I'm hideously busy, so it's been hard for me to find time to actually sit down and do that. I do have some nice concept art for it. Well, nice for me. I'm not a professional artist, but yeah, so it is in the work. There will be a special Glaurung model, and it will potentially have its own like custom animations and things like that, or maybe we'll tie it into some existing animation sets, depending on what I'm able to do. But yes, they're being worked on. They'll be pretty cool. They're gonna play a lot different from all the other orcish factions that you've seen. They'll have one of the few flying units that I've allowed to be in the mod. The other one belongs to Valinor. They'll have the second one. They'll have Glaurung, they'll have Udurloki, they'll have some chariots, a lot of axe infantry, and a bunch of other things that can be potentially problematic for factions like Finarfin, who they're going to butt heads with pretty early on. I would say within the first 50 turns of the campaign, that might be a problem for the Finarfin player. But yeah, no worries, man. Oh, thanks, Scouts. Oh my goodness, you're in here. Anything new from Mithrim? Mithrim's on the overhaul. It's like slated to be changed in a few ways along with other things. But that'll mostly just be like a lot of tweaking. I think largely their roster is the same. Mithrim is a minor faction, and they're not actually slated to be playable in campaign, so they won't. I don't say they'll get the same. They won't get the same care and attention, but they don't have as much of like a robust roster, I guess, as some of the other factions, like Fingolfin and House of Fëanor, the more central players. But you will still be able to play them in multiplayer, and maybe they'll get some other units and mercenaries and things like that you can recruit from their lands, but you won't even be able to play them in campaign. Multiplayer is really the only place you can mess around with them. let's see. We have any other questions here? Because I gotta wrap it up. I actually have some stuff I have to do this evening. So if we have any other questions, I do have some time for it right now. But please speak your mind. I don't see anything else, so I'll just do a quick look through here, see if I missed anything. No, it's looking like not. So I hope you guys are interested in the new overhaul. You will be seeing some more stuff from me in the future, and probably within the next couple of days, I would expect I'll do another stream with another replay that I was in. It's the same matchup, just I'm playing evil and my teammate is evil, and yeah. And it's a little bit, it shakes out a little bit differently with the comps and things like that. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I believe, have links to the Discord down in the description of this video, so if you guys want to join the community and say hi and keep up on news and things like that, of which there will be quite a lot in the next little while, especially with sieges and custom city settlements and things like that. Baradithal, I think, is the first thing you're going to see. Then please click that link and do so. In any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster.